They should have asked my husband. She thought marriage was safety. She thought loyalty was love. But when her husband chose betrayal over truth, she showed him what real revenge looks like, because they should have asked her husband. Before crossing her, in the suburbs of Chicago, Marissa lived the perfect wife's life, devoted, loyal, and patient. But perfection shattered the night she discovered her husband Daniel had been cheating, not just with a stranger, but with someone far too close. Humiliation turned to rage, and rage to vengeance. In a gripping 10-chapter journey of betrayal, broken promises, and calculated revenge, Marissa transforms from the woman who smiled silently at dinner parties into the woman who burns everything her husband built. This isn't just a story of a cheating husband. It's about a wife who rewrites the ending. The perfect suburban wife. The cul-de-sac looked picture perfect on a late summer evening in Chicago. Maple trees lined the quiet street, their leaves tinged with the faintest blush of orange, whispering in the breeze. The sound of kids playing basketball echoed faintly, and the sweet smell of freshly cut grass lingered in the air. From the outside, Marissa Hale's life looked flawless, the sort of existence people envied. Her house stood proud at the end of the block, all white shutters and red brick, with a manicured lawn and a black Range Rover gleaming in the driveway. Neighbors often said, "The Hales have it all, perfect couple, perfect life." And Marissa had played her role well. She wore her pearls, hosted her dinner parties, baked lemon pies that got compliments at every block gathering. She smiled at the PTA meetings, supported her husband's career, and never once let the mask slip. Her husband, Daniel Hale, was the kind of man who commanded a room, broad-shouldered, handsome in a corporate polished way, with a smile that disarmed clients and charmed anyone within reach. He was a successful financial consultant, one of the youngest partners at his firm. People respected him, respected them, but as Marissa stood in her spotless kitchen that evening, pouring herself a glass of Pinot Grigio, she felt the same dull ache that had been gnawing at her for months. Behind the perfect facade, something was broken. Daniel had grown distant, not cruel, not openly hostile, just absent. He stayed later at the office. His phone buzzed constantly with messages he never explained. An intimacy between them had become rare, mechanical, almost transactional. Marissa had convinced herself at first it was stress, pressure at work, the usual ebb and flow of marriage. But then came the missed anniversaries, the way he smiled at his phone instead of her, the smell of unfamiliar perfume lingering faintly on his suit jacket. She wasn't a fool. She noticed everything. Still, she played her role. She cooked his favorite roast chicken. She kissed him lightly on the cheek when he came home late. She maintained the home like a stage set. The audience, neighbors, colleagues, friends saw only perfection. But tonight, as she carried her wine glass to the living room, Marissa felt the hollow silence pressing in. She sat on the cream leather sofa, staring at the family photos neatly arranged on the wall. There they were in Paris, smiling under the Eiffel Tower, on the beach in Maui, arms wrapped around each other, sun-kissed and glowing. At a charity gala, dressed in black tie elegance, they looked like a magazine spread. But those smiles felt like someone else's life now. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from her sister. "You okay? Haven't heard from you all week." Marissa typed back quickly, "I'm fine. Just busy." The lie slipped out as easily as breathing. Because wasn't that what she was? Busy, too busy, keeping the mask intact, to admit that her marriage was unraveling thread by thread. The sound of the garage door opening broke her thoughts. Daniel was home. Marissa quickly set down her wine, straightened her blouse, and forced the familiar smile onto her lips. The mask. Always the mask. "Hey, babe," Daniel called, stepping inside, loosening his tie. His cologne filled the room, sharp and masculine, mingling with a faint scent of whiskey. He looked tired, but not in the way of a man burdened with work, more like someone exhausted from living two lives. "You're late," Marissa said gently, not accusing, just observant. "Yeah, sorry. Client meeting ran long," he replied smoothly, the way he always did. He kissed her cheek lightly, his lips cool, detached. "You eat already. I waited." He gave her a distracted smile and went straight to the kitchen, grabbing leftovers from the fridge. Marissa watched him, every movement of his body, every slight hesitation. She noticed how he kept his phone face down on the counter, like it held secrets too dangerous to expose. Over dinner, she asked about his day, and he answered with vague phrases. Busy, lots of numbers, meetings, nothing of substance. She laughed politely at his forced humor, nodded at the right moments, and all the while she felt that gnawing ache grow sharper later. As Daniel showered upstairs, Marissa cleaned the dishes in silence. The sound of the water running above her felt almost symbolic, him washing away the scent, the evidence, the traces of where he'd really been when he finally emerged. Towel draped around his waist, he looked at her as though she were part of the furniture, familiar, expected, safe, and that was when it struck her. Daniel wasn't afraid of losing her. He thought she would always be there, loyal and unquestioning, the perfect suburban wife. He thought she would never challenge him, never disrupt the image he had carefully constructed. But Marissa's smile, as she folded her hands in her lap, hid something new. Not the ache, not the quiet desperation. No, beneath the surface, a seed of something darker had taken root. Revenge. She didn't know yet how, or when, but one truth became crystal clear that night, as she lay beside Daniel, in their king's bed, staring at the ceiling while he drifted into peaceful sleep. They should have asked her husband, because if anyone knew what was coming, it would be him. The betrayal uncovered. It happened on a Tuesday, the most ordinary of days. Marissa had been folding laundry in the bedroom, humming faintly to herself, when Daniel's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower. Normally, she ignored it. She wasn't the type of wife who snooped. But tonight something tugged at her, sharp and insistent, like a whisper saying, "Look." Her hands hesitated above the neat stack of shirts. Then she picked up the phone. The lock screen lit up. No password. Daniel trusted her enough to leave it open. Or perhaps he simply underestimated her. The message glowed on the screen. "Claire, last night was unforgettable. I can still taste you." Marissa's world froze. Her chest tightened. Her ears rang with the rush of blood. Claire. Not just anyone. Not some faceless stranger. Her best friend. Memories of backyard barbecues, girls' nights with wine and laughter, whispered secrets over coffee. They all collapsed into a pile of ash in her mind. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled. Dozens of messages spilled out. Shameless, intimate, undeniable. Photos, plans, their secret language of stolen hours and forbidden passion. Daniel's voice echoed from the bathroom, singing off-key behind the steam of the shower. Innocent, unaware that his carefully hidden world had just been split open. Marissa set the phone back, her movements robotic, her face pale. She finished folding the shirts, carried them into the closet, and placed them neatly on the shelf. When Daniel stepped out, water dripping down his sculpted chest, he smiled at her like nothing had changed. "Thanks for dinner tonight," he said casually, kissing her cheek. "You're the best." She smiled back. A perfect mask. But inside, something in her snapped. Not tears, not begging, not pleading. Fire. That night, she lay awake beside him, her mind spinning with betrayal. Every laugh Claire had shared with her, every word of reassurance, every time she'd sworn, "You're like a sister to me." All lies. By dawn, Marissa knew one thing: she would not scream, she would not crumble, she would burn them both. The mask cracks. The next weekend, Claire and her husband, Michael, came over for dinner. It had been planned weeks earlier, one of their usual double-date nights. Daniel insisted they keep it, wouldn't want them to think anything's wrong. Marissa agreed, though her smile felt carved from stone. She spent the day preparing roast lamb, mashed potatoes, a perfect chocolate soufflé. The table was set with her best china, candles flickered warmly, and music drifted softly from the speakers. To anyone looking in, she was the flawless hostess. But beneath the polish, her veins pulsed with poison. Claire arrived in a little black dress, hair glossy, lips red. She hugged, silent planning. Marissa didn't confront Daniel, not yet. Instead, she began to plan. At night, while Daniel slept beside her, she slipped quietly into the study. She opened his laptop, studied his emails, memorized his passwords. She printed bank statements, business contracts, private correspondences. Daniel was careless in his arrogance. He thought she would never look, but she looked at everything. She discovered the shell companies he used to shuffle money. She found the emails where he mocked his clients, played risky games with investments. She noted every date he lied about working late. Her research became ritual. Each night, she pieced together the map of his double life. Each morning, she smiled at him over coffee. The perfect wife. With every discovery, her rage sharpened into precision. This would not be a screaming match. This would not be a divorce that left her begging for scraps. This would be war. She didn't tell a soul, not her sister, not her mother, not even her reflection in the mirror. She carried the secret like a blade, hidden under silk. The more she uncovered, the more powerful she felt. For the first time in years, she wasn't the background figure in Daniel's story. She was the author now, and the ending would be hers to write. The first strike it began with an email. Marissa sat at her laptop one evening, glass of wine by her hand, heart steady. She attached a folder of Daniel's most incriminating business documents, emails showing insider leaks, evidence of shady deals, and sent them anonymously to the board of his firm. Click sent. By morning, the storm had erupted. Daniel came home furious, slamming his briefcase onto the counter. "Can you believe this?" he shouted, pacing. "Someone leaked private company files. Now the board's calling emergency meetings. If I find out who..." Marissa stirred her coffee calmly, eyes lowered, hiding the tiny curve of her lips. "That sounds awful," she said softly, as if her heart weren't pounding with satisfaction. Daniel ranted, cursed, threw papers across the kitchen. But Marissa just nodded sympathetically, playing the role of the supportive wife while inside. She savored the first taste of victory. One strike. Not enough to destroy him, just enough to make him bleed. And she wasn't done. Not by far. Claire's downfall. Marissa had always believed revenge tasted best when savored slowly. And tonight, she prepared to savor Claire's destruction. She invited Michael, Claire's husband, over for coffee one afternoon when Claire was busy. She set the table in the sunny kitchen, laid out muffins, and poured steaming cups of coffee, as if this were just another neighborly chat. Michael was a kind man, steady, dependable, the sort of husband who never raised his voice. But today, he looked tired, shadows under his eyes. "How are you, Michael?" Marissa asked, her tone light. He sighed. "Works fine. Claire's well. She's been distracted lately. Distant, I don't know. Maybe it's just me." Marissa's smile was gentle, sympathetic. Then she slid an envelope across the table. Michael frowned. "What's this?" "Something you need to see." Inside were printouts of Claire's text messages with Daniel. Every word, every photo. Proof undeniable. Michael's face drained of color as he read. His hand shook. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Claire and Daniel." Marissa reached across, touched his hand lightly. "I'm sorry. I thought you deserved the truth." Tears welled in his eyes, not the weak tears of a broken man, but the furious tears of betrayal. That night, Claire's perfect marriage imploded. Neighbors heard shouting, glass breaking. Michael threw her clothes onto the lawn. The next morning, she moved into a motel, mascara streaked down her face, her reputation shredded. But Marissa watched from her window, sipping her coffee. Eyes cold. One down. Daniel begs. Daniel's world crumbled faster than he could contain it. First came the board's investigation at his firm. Then clients pulled out. Money vanished. Whispers of fraud circled like vultures. His reputation, so carefully built, was in ruins. And through it all, Marissa played the perfect wife. She rubbed his shoulders, cooked his meals, murmured, "It'll be okay, honey." But inside, she laughed. One night, Daniel sat in the darkened kitchen, his tie loosened, his eyes bloodshot. "Marissa," he whispered, voice breaking, "I don't know what to do. I'm losing everything." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Everything," he nodded. "The board's turning on me, Michael's threatening lawsuits, and Claire." He stopped, realizing too late that he'd spoken her name aloud. Marissa tilted her head. "Claire what?" Daniel's mouth opened, closed, his face twisted with panic. And that was the moment she knew he was terrified, not of the firm, not of the board, not even of Michael, but of her. She stepped closer, her voice soft but cutting. "Tell me, Daniel, did you really think you could betray me and I wouldn't notice? Did you think I'd stay silent, play the fool?" His face crumpled. He dropped to his knees, grabbing her hands. "I'm sorry, Marissa. Please, please forgive me. I'll end it. I'll fix everything. Just don't leave me." She looked down at him, the mighty Daniel Hale, brought to his knees by his own arrogance. And for the first time in years, she felt powerful. But forgiveness. That word had no place left in her vocabulary. The sweetest revenge was not complete until she stripped him of everything he valued. Marissa contacted a lawyer, a sharp, ruthless woman named Evelyn Torres. Together, they crafted a strategy. Divorce papers, asset division, alimony demands. Evelyn's eyes lit up as she studied the evidence Marissa had collected. "You'll have him on his knees," Evelyn said. "Legally, financially, personally. He won't see it coming. And he didn't. Weeks later, Daniel sat across from Marissa in Evelyn's office, his face pale as he signed document after document. He was losing the house, the cars, half his investments. Every empire he'd built was being carved away, piece by piece, handed to the woman he thought was powerless. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered hoarsely. Marissa leaned back, her smile cool. "Because they should have asked my husband. He thought I was weak. He thought I would stay silent. But he forgot one thing: no one knows how to destroy you better than your wife." The final signature sealed his fate. Daniel left the office that day, a shell of the man he once was. And Marissa, she walked out with her head high, her heels clicking like victory drums. The night of their anniversary arrived. 11 years since their vows. 11 years since she'd promised loyalty to a man who never deserved it. Daniel begged her to spend the evening together. For old time's sake. Pathetic, broken, clinging to scraps, Marissa agreed. But she had other plans. They drove to their suburban home, still legally hers. Daniel poured champagne, desperate to rekindle what he'd destroyed. Marissa listened, nodded, let him believe. Then, as he rambled, she slipped away into the garage. She lit the match, one small flame to a trail of gasoline she had prepared. When the fire roared to life, Daniel's screams echoed through the house. He scrambled, panicked, while Marissa stood calmly at the curb, watching the flames consume everything he'd built. The neighbors gathered, horrified, calling 911. Sirens wailed in the distance. But Marissa didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. The house was gone. The marriage ash. The dream incinerated. And it felt perfect. Freedom tastes like wine. Weeks later, Marissa sat on the balcony of her new Chicago apartment, high above the city. The skyline glittered, lights stretching into infinity. She wore a silk robe, her hair loose, a glass of red wine in her hand. Music played softly in the background. She wasn't the suburban wife anymore. She wasn't Daniel's shadow, Claire's friend, or the woman who smiled through betrayal. She was free. Daniel, ruined; Claire, discarded. Their lies, their passion, their arrogance, sashes in the wind. Marissa raised her glass to the night sky, her lips curving into a smile. "They should have asked my husband," she murmured. "He thought he knew me. He thought I'd never fight back. He was wrong." The city lights shimmered. The wine tasted like victory. And Marissa Hale, reborn from betrayal, vowed she would never wear a mask again.